Okay, so summary of the results so far. So the bonus group was 25 percentage points more likely to obtain a license, 42 percentage points more likely to obtain it quickly, 13 percentage points more likely to obtain their license without taking the exam, and 18 percentage points more likely to obtain their license without being able to drive, and paid about 50% more. The lesson group was 15 percentage points more likely to get a license, didn't get it quickly, not more likely to get it without taking the exam, 22 percentage points less likely to obtain their license without being able to drive. Okay? And they didn't pay any more than the control group. So what do you make of these results kind of on net? Group. So what we're learning from this group is, yes, you can grease the wheels and go faster if you want to. But as we were saying before, you want only to grease the wheels for the good drivers, not the bad drivers. It doesn't seem to be doing it kind of paying attention to your driving ability. It seems kind of roughly willing to grease the wheels regardless of your driving ability. Right? So that's inefficient. What do you make of this part? What do you learn from the lesson group? Nothing. Right? Right? The first order thing you would think would happen is nothing would happen. Right? Because they still have to pay the fee. Right? And the fact they're better drivers is basically irrelevant. Now, there's one sort of asterisk to put on that story, which is you might say they're better drivers, and this I guess going back to your willingness to pay point a little bit, they're better drivers and therefore they actually want to get a license so they can start driving. So maybe they have higher willingness to pay for that reason. But they're not paying more actually. Right? So if it was all they were getting, the more likely to get their license because they're willing to pay more, then you'd expect them to pay more. But they're not paying more. Right? And so what this is telling you is that essentially being a better driver has reduced the effective cost of getting a license somehow. Right? And so what that's telling you is, even though this is a corrupt system, somehow the system is still differentiating between people who don't know how to drive and people who do know how to drive. Okay? So it's in some sense, the paper is kind of complicated. Right? It's not sort of a simple story. Right? On the one hand, there's all this corruption going on, and if you're willing to pay, you can get your license regardless of your ability to drive. On the other hand, just kind of as status quo, like the system is responding to people's ability to drive. So if you think about this from the incentives this is creating for people to learn how to drive, it is creating an incentive for you to learn how to drive, because you're more likely to get your license for the same low fee if you know how to drive. So it is giving you incentives to learn how to drive. Now, those incentives are probably flatter than the government would like them to be. Right? So one way to think about this is the ideal situation is people who can drive get licenses, people who don't. Right? This system has clearly flattened that out, right? And reduced the cost of not knowing how to drive, but it hasn't made it go to zero. And that's one way to think about these results. Is that clear? Okay. So by the way, so what about these agents? This is kind of interesting. So the authors thought this agent thing was kind of neat, or certainly kind of interesting. So they did the following test to see what agents can and can't do. So they hired some actors, okay, to play people who wanted to get a driver's license, and they varied the script. Okay, they said, I wanted to get a driver's license, and here's my deal. And they basically said, what's the price? Like, can you help me? And if so, what's the price? Okay, and they wanted to sort of figure out, how are agents setting their prices? Like, what goes into making it a more difficult job for an agent? So here are the results. So this is like a dummy variable for can the agent get me a license? And this is the price if so. And they can put in fixed effects for actors. So this says within putting in actor dummies, so saying within the same actor, they're just having the same actor give different scripts and seeing what happens. Okay? So here, the results are pretty interesting. First result was interesting. Cannot drive has no impact. Okay? So if I go to the person and I say, hey, I need a license, I can't drive, or I say I can drive, that has no impact on the ability to get a license and no impact on the price. This is like, I think this is like pretty shocking, personally. I find it shocking. On the other hand, if I say, I'm sorry, I don't have proof of address, I don't have proof of where I live, that decreases the likelihood they can get you a license by 50%, okay, and doubles the cost. Okay? If I have no proof of age, again, down by 23%, increases the cost by 25%. If I can't come back, remember there's a 30-day minimum period. If I say I need it today and I can't come back, 95% less likely to be able to get you the license. It drops from like 100% to 5%. And the cost also goes up a little bit, although there it's so insignificant because they have no observations, because no one says they can do it. And similarly, need my license quickly, like I need it in less than 32 days, cannot be done, basically. So what do you make of this?